I wasn't exactly sure on how to intro this video, so I'm just going to be blunt with it. As you guys have probably seen in the title and the thumbnail, Rizzo is going to be retiring from the Rocket League competitive scene. What's up, everybody? Lawler here, your inside source for all things Rocket League. As you've seen by the intro and the thumbnail and the title, it has been shown that Rizzo is going to be retiring from the Rocket League competitive scene. Earlier yesterday, he put out a 5-part tweet kind of detailing the reasons as to why and how he's come to be. We're going to be discussing all that information today, going over a little bit of his history as a Rocket League competitive player, and then talking about his future, which I personally am really excited for. So first things first, let's take a look at the tweet. As mentioned, he put out a tweet on March 18th at 1:05 p.m. saying, "A lot of people were wondering about the G2 RL team at the end of last split with a few rumors here and there. And just want to point out that after the winter split, I did try to step down from professional play and do full-time content." So we already know about his future a little bit of ahead of time, and talking about some of the focuses of he would like to focus full-time on content creation and would like to step down as a competitive player. There will be a video at the very end of this as well of Rizzo speaking about it on G2 social medias as well that will play for you guys so you can hear it from the man himself. For those that aren't aware of what the rumors were, is there was a lot of talks about how AJ was possibly going to be leaving the Peeps and then joining G2 as a full-time thing. That didn't end up happening. Peeps continue along their path of terror, and Rizzo ends up still playing on the roster. I also heard rumors potentially of how Wondermike was leaving United and was going to do the similar situation of what G2's current sub is, where they were going to bring in possibly Wondermike instead of Drees as a sub and then try him out and see how he would play on that roster. That is a rumor. I don't know if that was actually the truth or not. Just whisperings that I had hearing from the outside, but they do go with Drees. And if you guys don't know Drees, he is an up-and-comer, younger kid that has been really catching a lot of people's attention. I personally have seen him a lot playing with Lethamir in twos and stuff, but a very talented player and excited to see what his future career path goes. But let's keep the focus on Rizzo. Originally, Rizzo is stating that he did not want to play in the spring split, but he says, due to complications with finding a player, we as a team decided it'd be best if I stuck around for the remainder of the season. So Rizzo is stating that he is going to continue to play for G2, but it is going to be sprinkling in Drees in certain events, which he further clarifies. He said that we are willing to try other options and experiment this split, which to me is a little bit interesting. He does state in his next tweet that Drees is going to be filling in for the grid and giving him a place to shine. But the curiosity in me is obviously Rizzo, for him to come to this conclusion with them still being in a top 6 potential to go to the World Championship, and despite that, he still doesn't want to play, I think is very telling of the toll that it's taking on Rizzo and that he really wants to transition out of it. For a player to be that close to getting another chance to lift the trophy, which is what a lot of these guys fight for, which is something they were super close to doing as well in Season 7, for him to take that step back when, again, it's within reach, I think says a lot about the situation, even if the words aren't being said themselves. And that could be me just nitpicking and kind of pulling at it what I can, but I personally look at it from a competitive side and know Rizzo's ability to compete. And for him to still say, like, yes, we're top 6. Yes, we have a chance at the World Championship. I still don't want to say, like, I'm going to stick it out for the rest of the season. And maybe that's just me kind of twisting the words. But what I assume is going to happen is Rizzo is going to continue to play as part of the starting roster on and during the regional events. Regional 1, he is for sure playing in. And I think he may also play in Regional 2, in Regional 3, and see how things go and finish out, I would assume, the rest of the season. Unless things with Drees go really, really well and the team starts to kind of develop in a really positive manner. And maybe it's something that will happen mid-split. And I assume that probably will happen, is they're slowly trying to transition Drees into the starting role and using the grid, which doesn't have as much weight to it, to then, once he gets warmed up and the team gets comfortable with that, then transition Rizzo out and put Drees in full time. Whether that is going to be the case or not, only I think G2 knows, but it is going to be an interesting development that happens here over the next couple of weeks or months, depending on how you look at it. I'm curious to figure out what's also happening with their scrims in regards to the difference between if they're going to play with Rizzo or if they're going to play with Drees during scrims, and Rizzo is just going to try to keep his hours up, or I don't know how that's going to function, because the difficulty for me is obviously the coming to the terms that Rizzo is on his way out after being with the team since like 2017, but also making sure that they're still competitive, and you don't want to split the focus between one player and another and it creates complications because if they don't scrim with Rizzo, I think it does put them at a disadvantage if Rizzo does compete. But if they're not, like, it's just, I'm trying to think of both scenarios and how they're going to do it and how they're going to, I guess, work this one out and how quick that transition is going to happen. But ultimately, obviously, the reason why I think we weren't going to see a roster change personally was because of the risk that it puts out at the World Championship. Now, if they were a team that was, in a position to where, Worlds is completely out of reach, then yeah, make the change and commit to it, and we'll see how it goes moving forward. Rizzo gets to go do full-time content creation and, all sunshine and rainbows. But that isn't the case because they are so close and they are still qualified technically at this point, and they need the results of the winter split to keep themselves in the running. I think it adds a lot of different complications and a lot of different things that I think this team has to figure out collectively. And I'm sure they've been doing that a lot behind the scenes. I'm sure this is, and the way that it's handled, I respect Rizzo so much for the way that he's handling this and the way that he's detailing the information for people. It's handled very professionally. It makes me really curious about how the team has been talking and discussing and trying to figure out what this transition period is going to be. And, how are we going to work in Drees? Am I going to compete for these amount of times? Am I going to compete in scrims? Like, how is this going to work? So the fact that I'm thinking about it makes me almost assume that, of course, they've been also discussing this to figure what that transition period is going to be. Because it's going to be a new team. It's going to be a new playstyle. Rizzo has a very important role for the current G2 roster in the way that he plays, and that is going to change. They've been playing with this same roster for a very long time, and it is going to take some time to develop. So that's the scary part for a lot of G2 fans, is if Rizzo does leave, you come to a level of expectation of, G2 being a top 6 team. And when that roster changes, there is going to be an adjustment period. And I'm curious on if we're going to see something like the change to Kansas City Pioneers, where Beast Mode comes in, they're automatically a team that starts trending in the right direction. You look at what Com's doing for version 1 and the difference there. There's a lot of positives when you can bring in a new player, but it's going to be really different not seeing Rizzo on the field. He does confirm, like I said in his third tweet, for the regional this weekend, I will be playing for the entirety of the event, and after we will be using our sub Drees to fill in the grid and let him shine. I want to thank everybody who has supported me and the rest of the team and the entirety of our time together. It means a lot to me that we've all had this continued support for so long. I have so much love for you guys in the G2 squad. Last but not least, I mentioned that there is a video that Rizzo does put out on the G2 social media where he talks about his thoughts and his reasoning in a little bit more detail. I'll play that at the very end, but before we get into that, I just kind of want to bring people through his history to kind of give credit to how long Rizzo's been doing this. A lot of people forget that Rizzo is still one of the very few that have been playing since the very beginning. His career started with a team by the name of Orange Creamsicle. If you guys do not remember, Orange Creamsicle had it was like Quinn Lobdell's OG team, if you guys remember him from way back. They never competed in like RLCS, but it was pre-RLCS during like ESL weeklies and stuff like that, and Rocket League Pro League and all that fun stuff. Quinn Edwin Gambit, who is part of the iBuyPower team at one point. You've also then got Rizzo on that team. Enigma Please was there. Like, there's been so many different iterations of this roster. It then transitioned into the Mocket NA team back when Mocket had an NA and an EU team. This team then played in North America Season 1, which was interesting because technically it was 2 seasons, because Season 1 had both a first part and a second part, which was a little bit weird. Rocket League and Psyonix recognized that it would be difficult because if both the NA team and the EU team qualified for the World Championships, that would create some problems. They then added a rule to make it impossible for orgs to have both an NA and an EU team representation, even though Mocket still tried to do that under different names. We don't need to go into that. Rizzo's first true success when it came to the world stage, though, came in Season 2 at Amsterdam, where the team of Take 3 ended up taking top 4 in the World Championships alongside Insolences and Zane Jackie. He then competed them with another season in Season 3, and then in Season 4, as many of you know, he joined the team as you know it, G2 Esports. JNaps, Rizzo, and Kronovi, and that has gone through different iterations when they brought in Chicago, but since February 22nd of 2017, Rizzo and JNaps have been teammates. It is the longest standing duo in Rocket League to this point, and is going to be a very tough record to beat in my assumption, and is one of those kind of iconic moments, even though it's not for the better, or, maybe it is. Whatever your take is on it, I'm happy for Rizzo's transitioning into content creation. It's going to make him probably happier, as we've seen it happen for Leth and others. But it's a new era, I guess I guess that's the better way to say it. It's going to be a new era for Rocket League, because you get so used to seeing his name and playing and stuff like that, that for a lot of us OGs that have been following his career the entire time for the, 6 years that it's been, it's going to feel weird for a bit. It's felt weird when Kronovi was no longer on G2. It felt weird seeing Kronovi no longer on Rogue. Like, you see that with a lot of these OGs. Cooks are transitioning, and I think that's kind of this new era we're entering. A lot of these young players that are very, very talented, that are kind of this up and comer, and some of these guys that have been doing it since the beginning are burnt out. They don't find the motivation, and honestly, rightfully so. I'm part of that talk as well. After, you know, playing this game for 6 years, you know, maybe 10 hours a month is my limit. I just don't have that urge to play like I once used to, because I'm also not trying to get better at the game. I just become complacent and plateau, and I'm happy with where I'm at. So, you know, it's going to be different, and I'm excited to see what Drees does in the future, and if they continue to keep Drees or if they try out other players, because after this split, you know, again, we start season 11, whenever it may be, and you're going to see a whole lot of different things, because people are starting to realize a year or 9 months of a season is a really long time to keep a roster with only one change. So credit to Rizzo. I think it's a really tough decision on his part, and the fact that he's made it, been public with it, and the way that he's handling it, I think is super professional. And I personally am super excited to see his future. I think his content is some of the best in our community. I'm excited to see that no longer limited to just Rocket League. I would love to see Rizzo continue with G2, and I think G2 would be silly to let him go, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be G2 Rizzo, but now he's a content creator and not a Rocket League professional. I still think he's going to be able to do some fun collaborations with the team and a lot of different things. And the fact that his creative freedom is now just go and do what you want. The fact that he's kept up the content side and the pro side for this long, he's taken off the training weights. I'm really excited to see what Rizzo does in his future. But rather than hearing it from me, let's hear from the man himself.
Hey guys, it's Rizzo, and I wanted to give you an update on my position as a pro player. For me, I've been playing for a very long time. It's been nearly 6 years since I started, and 5+ have been in the competitive scene. So with that in mind, for me personally, I feel like it's very hard to find the motivation to continue playing and keep grinding and continue the competition. I think the most enjoyable thing to me right now is just streaming. I have a lot of fun hanging out, talking with you guys, and playing different games and doing other things on stream. For me personally, and with my career, I feel like it just makes a lot more sense that I will step into content creation instead of pro play. So you guys are probably wondering how the team is going to work going into the next split. I will still be playing in a portion of the events coming up. We're super excited to have Drees fill in. He's a young up-and-coming talent, and Chicago and JNAPS are super excited to play with him as well until we find a more permanent replacement. When we do have more updates, you guys will definitely be the first to know, and we look forward to all your support in our final split together. And while we still are trying to win, this is a transitional split for us, and we're really trying to enjoy our last split together and doing one more for the boys.